Alrighty, let's jump into it. We're going to have a look at the Warriors Pacific rivals here. We'll go team by team. Let's start with the Los Angeles Lakers. So a little bit of an overview of what they've done in their offseason to date. The biggest thing for me was the re-signing of Austin Reeves, 4-year, $56 million contract. That is an A-plus deal for the Lakers. Incredibly fortunate to be able to get him back on that deal when there was some talk that he may garner something closer to 4 years, 100. That to get him for 4 years, 56 is absolutely unreal. They brought back Rui Hachimura as well, 3 years, 51. D'Angelo Russell, 2 years, 36. Those two deals, they're trade contracts for mine, and we can get into it a little bit more later on. But to me, you've got a guy on an average of 17 there and an average of 18 there. So about $35 million on average for both those players. You can get a really good player, for that amount of money, $35 million. And I just think that, are those guys going to last the length of that contract? I doubt it, but I'll get your thoughts on that in a second. Gabe Vincent, 3 years, 33. A nice deal. I think getting him away from Miami is not only a nice move for the Lakers, but is a clear issue that Miami are going to have to address. Taurean Prince, I thought after the Austin Reeves deal, Taurean Prince to get him 1 year, $4.5 million, I thought was another fantastic move for the Lakers, a guy that I thought should have gotten closer to probably double digits, and I think this is a 1 year deal for him to try and up his value and try and get into that double digit range in free agency again next offseason. And then a couple of younger players, Cam Reddish, 2 years, 4.6, second year player option. Look, he's talented, but at this point, how much can we expect out of him going forward for the remainder of his career? I think Laker fans will be excited with the potential that he could bring, but it hasn't worked out in a variety of places now, and I just don't expect it ever will for Cam Reddish, unfortunately. Jackson Hayes is in a pretty similar boat, exact same contract actually, 2 years, $4.6 million. Again, another player, could he be a nice rim-running lob threat to play alongside LeBron? Potentially. But again, that kind of youth and inexperience come playoff time, I just really wonder what sort of impact he's going to be able to have for the Lakers. They drafted Jalen Hood-Schifino 17th overall. So I'm just having a look at their kind of rotation here. Is their starting five still going to be Russell, Reeves, LeBron, AD, and Vando? And then, there are other options here. Vincent, obviously, Prince, Reddish, Hayes, we spoke about, and Hachimura, obviously, as well. Christie is there, Hood-Schifino, Lewis. They need another... I'm looking at this roster. They've got a couple of available roster spots. They need another big, to me, to offer some versatility. I still prefer AD at the 5. There's no doubt about that. But I think I'd like the opportunity for him to be able to play a little bit at the 4, and I'm just wondering how they're exactly going to do that with the lack of center options on this roster currently. I also would like a third point guard, to be honest. I know LeBron's a de facto point guard, Reeves can handle the ball, but if Russell ends up being a trade asset more than anything, then that really leaves you with Gabe Vincent in terms of a point guard there, and Gabe Vincent played a lot of off-ball in Miami playing next to Jimmy Butler, so I think another a third point guard are the biggest needs for the Los Angeles Lakers. What jumps out to you from what I've just said there?
Yeah, I think that was a great overview, and you highlighted the Reeves contract right up front, and I think that was a steal for the Lakers. Now, they were helped by the fact that that's the most they could offer, and nobody jumped in and signed him to an offer sheet that they'd have to match that could have gone above that kind of arenas limit for them. So that worked out for them, and they got him on a fantastic contract. And I think you talked about them needing a third point guard. I think Reeves can be that guy. I think he showed in the playoffs his on-ball creation. He can handle. He makes good decisions. He knows what to do with the ball. So I think they're probably fine on the ball handlers when you factor in the fact that LeBron's going to have the ball a ton. But I do think they're going to have issues with their bigs because Jackson Hayes, the Pelicans really only time they found success with him was playing him at the 4. And then you factor in that Davis prefers to be at the 4. Vanderbilt is not really built to be a center. So they really, I think, need to add some size. And they've got 2 roster spots open. They've got the possibility of maybe dropping one of their two-way contracts to sign a center. So they have a couple options, but I think that's probably their biggest point of need because the Lakers are going to win or lose depending on if LeBron and AD are healthy in the playoffs, right? And so they need to get them to the playoffs healthy, which means they need functional depth. I think their depth is fine at the forward positions, at the guard positions, but it's not at center. So they've got to get a guy who can eat some minutes during the season. So I think that's the biggest need. As far as I think their worst move of the offseason, it's close for me. I think Jalen Hood-Schifino is going to turn out to be probably a pretty low-end NBA player. I just think he doesn't shoot three super well. He's just kind of a mid-range jump shooter. And so you have to be really good at that to make it in the NBA with that as your top skill. And that's a short window for him to get in. But I also didn't like the Hachimura contract. I thought the Lakers reacted too strongly to his hot shooting in the playoffs. I think unsustainably hot given his track record. And so I think that was a lot of money to hand Hachimura. That's probably going to come back to bite them. But again, they needed some functional depth. They need a guy they trusted. They liked how the team looked and played at the end of last year. So I get it. They kind of ran it back, swapped Schroeder out for Vincent. I think they should be pretty similar to what they were at the end of last year, which is probably not good enough to win a title, but maybe is good enough to win a couple rounds again if everybody hits the postseason healthy.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you just said. So do you think they run it back with a similar starting five with D'Lo and Reeves and LeBron and AD and Vando? Or can you see one of those newer free agent acquisitions, you Gabe Vincent maybe coming and go a little bit smaller, or just Vincent in for Russell? I guess that's probably a question mark, maybe going to training camp. Can you see any surprises here with their starting five?
Yeah, I think there definitely are four guys that should definitely start with. I think D'Lo has a pretty solid grip on that starting spot, especially since they're going to want to showcase him as a potential trade chip. And so I think he'll start. I think Vincent will come off the bench probably all year, I would guess, unless there's maybe a specific matchup or D'Lo does get traded. But that fifth spot, I think, is pretty interesting. So Vanderbilt is an incredible defensive player, but doesn't add a ton on offense. And I think that you take D'Lo's a pretty good shooter, but not an awesome one. LeBron, pretty good shooter, not an awesome one. And then Davis and Vando, that really kind of strangles their shooting. And so they may find that they like this floor spacing of Taurean Prince has been up and down, but maybe they like him. Max Christie's gotten some buzz after his strong showing in Summer League that maybe he could fight his way into that small forward spot. Cam Reddish has the potential that goes on and on and on and on. But ultimately, I think that the fifth starter for the Lakers come the playoffs probably isn't on the roster yet. And I think they'll probably pick him up on the trade market sometime this year.
Have you got any names for me that you think the Lakers should target at all, or whether that's via trade or with these remaining roster spots in free agency?
Yeah, I think that I would probably look at the Spurs, who have taken on some money in deals this summer and gotten some wing shooters. So you got Reggie Bullock, 3-and-D shooter. Again, he's streaky, but that's what you're looking for. So you got Reggie Bullock, you got Chetty Osman. They could probably go after a guy like that without making a move with D'Angelo Russell, or then they could go maybe bigger game hunting with D'Angelo Russell and try to get someone who's a higher level there. Maybe they go after Dorian Finney-Smith on the Nets, who have a surplus of wings, or someone like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the point you made there on Taurean Prince, and one of the reasons I find him one of the most valuable deals of free agency, is the fact that maybe he's not necessarily starting, but especially early in the season, I could see him closing in a lot of Laker lineups as that kind of fifth guy with Reeves, James, Davis, and whether it's Russell or Vincent in that spot as well.